Well, hello everybody. It's 12 o'clock on a Wednesday, which means that it's a lunchtime lecture here at Red and Yellow. My name is Wesley Fredericks. I get to lead this amazing team here at Red and Yellow Creative School of Business. And this week we're in our third installment of our series, our lunchtime lecture series on search engine optimization. In week one, we looked at the fundamentals of SEO. Last week, we looked at how to outrank your competitors. And this week, we're going to look at how to get return on investment from SEO. And we have the privilege, again, of having Andre van Kets and Rick Harrington from Discover Africa Group take us through that. We've had lots of fun over the last 2 weeks, a lot of banter, a lot of good learning. And so I'm going to invite Andre and Rick to come onto the screen now. Just before they start, just a reminder that there is an option or opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A function down below. So please do that, and we'll answer the questions as we go through, and we'll leave some to the end as well. Andre, Rick, welcome. I see we're all in T-shirts today. Obviously, a sunny day here in Cape Town. Not sure what the rest of the country's like, but wherever you guys are coming in from, our participants, I hope you're staying warm and healthy. Andre, Rick, over to you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much, Wesley. It's really awesome to be back. Went for a nice run this morning. We are on lockdown level 2, which means tourism is starting to happen again, and spring is around the corner, literally. So we pumped. Things are starting to happen again. Yeah, and today we're gonna keep going where we left off last week. Cool. Yeah, and please do fire away questions as we go. Rick, just jump in if you see anything interesting. I'm gonna take the lead and obviously defer to Rick. Yeah, so last week we reviewed sort of 4 of the 8 fundamentals we covered in week 1. We used our Safari deals site as sort of a platform to showcase how all these things relate. Rick, just give me a thumbs up. You can see my screen okay?
All good.
Great. So yeah, we covered how the setup of your CMS and the technical setup is so important. We looked at keywords and using 2 great tools, how to use it. I'm gonna touch on that today also. On-page SEO, those sort of 14 points around any page. You should cover as much of that as possible. And then content, the quality, the relevance, the velocity, how long the content is, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, today we ended off last week with a little bit of an experiment in terms of to see if anyone else or how many people linked to our site would it have an impact. And to be honest, I didn't get any clarity from any of the viewers, which is kind of normal in link building, and I'll touch on that. So one example, I had my cousin in Belgium, Bert. He Facebook messaged me right after the talk saying, "Hey Andre, thanks so much. I'll definitely link to you from my site, vankets.com." Of course, a week later, I had a look, no link. Bert, I'm sure you had the best intentions, but this is the reality of link building. You dream up this beautiful thing, you ask 100 people to link to you, 50 say, great, I'll do it, 20 think about it and sort of get around to it, and maybe 5 or 10 actually bother linking to your site. And I'm not saying that like that, it's a downer, but it's just the reality. You've got to put a lot of effort to get links. And the better the product or the better the thing you're offering people to link to, the higher your conversion rate, the higher your chance of getting links. So that's just a little anecdote. And if anyone did link through to us, please let me know. We still want to offer you that free assessment. And of course, you're welcome to link to our site at any stage.
And so, just quickly, you're saying there, nulch, nada. But I think it's kind of important that everyone knows that obviously it takes time for Google to crawl. It takes time for Google to pick these links up. So, SEO is not about, it's not like PPC. You don't, press a button and put some budget to it and all of a sudden there's going to be traffic. It's a long-term strategy. So you want to make sure that you're doing stuff for the future, not just for today.
Totally. So let me also just sidetrack quickly to how the site's been doing. It's only been a week since launch, and we had the benefit of launching it on a well-established domain. So now we're looking at 55 index pages when you go site : and then your site name, which is great. Last week we were at 27 or 29. I think what this tells me, not only have we added more deals to the site, we went from 20 to 32, and we're continually adding more deals every day, which is wonderful. But the point is that Google has indexed every single page on our site within a week, or 10 days, which is really great. That means our site map's there. Our robots.txt is correct. We're not blocking them anywhere. So this makes me feel very good 10 days into launch. And you can do this for your site also to kind of just compare, does this number here reflect the true content on your site? So just remember that. Then you're right. I didn't say we don't have any links. What I said is we didn't get any links from the people watching last week's webinar, not that I know of. But when I search our brand name, Deals to Discover, in Google, I see we've got a wonderful link from atta.travel. That's the Africa Travel and Tourism Association, a very well-established site that the tourism industry watches closely. Then Google picks up some videos. We've got one for the site itself. There's some Indian platform called Deals to Discover, which is unrelated. And then I see SATSA, the South African Tourism Association, has linked to our site. Discover Africa Group, that's one of our platforms. So obviously we're linking to our own internal friends and family, our partner sites. And then that's about all. And I see TourVest, that's another local company in South Africa that's obviously found our platform and linked to us. So, you know, you do get organic links, but you've actually got to ask people. I think that's the point I'm making. If you don't go out and ask, you're not going to get. People aren't just going to willingly link to you unless you really have something amazing and share worthy. But in this day and age, you actually have to put in that effort when it comes to links. Yeah, so maybe that's just to clarify, Rick. We don't have nothing. We just, you got to ask really hard. I'm going to pop over here to how we go about building links. And here's a spreadsheet. I'm giving away everyone's names and contacts here, but I'll scroll through this. There's about 30 or 40 websites, bloggers, radio stations, travel industry, News 24, travel, IOL. And we reach out to every single one of these people and ask them, hey, have you heard about our platform? Would you like to run an article or share on your social media? And you literally have to do that one by one. There's no shortcut to this. You have to reach out and ask. In terms of industry, here's the dozen or so people that I reached out to. Most of them got back to me. And this is where we got those links from Atta and Satsa, and Heavy Chef wants to do an interview about our approach. So it gets really, you really have to put in the effort. These links don't just magically appear. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. All right, let's go back to sort of the coursework here. Before we get to links pointing to our site, which is a real thing that moves up the needle, and as you can see, it takes time. There's a lot of stuff we have direct control over that can also help in terms of links. And firstly, you start with the stuff closest to home, which is your internal links. So your navigation. Have you optimized those links? So let's have a look on our homepage. Our navigation uses the main word in each of them. Under province, we've got each of our provinces. And last week, I realized, you know what? Who searches Northwest Province Safari? I don't think many people do. I did some keyword research. I discovered there wasn't a lot of search around it, but one of the most popular parks in the Northwest is the Pilanesberg. So we created a new page for Pilanesberg. I didn't just go Pilanesberg deals. There was no real traffic around that, but there was a lot of traffic and a lot of search around Pilanesberg accommodation specials. So here we go. We've created a whole new opportunity for, I think, let me just look at my keyword research tool here. Pilanesberg lodges, Pilanesberg private lodges. This is an SEM Rush, one of our tools. I can do something similar here in Google while I'm running my Keywords Everywhere Chrome plugin. You can check here. It's giving me really nice suggestions for keywords here. Top of the list was Pilanesberg accommodation specials. This is completely free. Any of you can use this just to get a sense of most search keywords to least search keywords. Bit of a recap from last week. If you go the paid tool, it gives you a little bit more data. It tells you the search volume. It gives you the relative difference as you go down the list. And I'm just going to hop over to the Keywords Everywhere site, completely free. It tells you exactly how to use the tool, some screenshots. Everyone should have this if you want to think about keywords. In terms of pricing, it's actually a great model. I didn't realize this, Rick, until you pointed this out to me, because I get so stuck into SEM Rush, our premium tool. But you don't have to pay a monthly fee. You buy a bundle of credits, $10, $50, however many you need, and you use it until you finish. You don't have this recurring $99 a month coming off your account that you forget about. As an agency or a large SEO-focused company, you might want a hardcore tool. But if you just want to get to know the keywords of your site or your niche or your industry, hop on here. You can do wonders for $10 one-off. Really, really great. So I'm jumping around a bit here, but sorry, go ahead.
Andre, just quickly, I just did a search for Pilanesberg accommodation specials, and we're top of page 3 after, 4 days?
I think I did this on Monday, 2 days. Okay, then let's do a little bit of on-page. Now let's see, Pilanesberg accommodation specials, great. It's in the title tag. Remember those 14 points? It's the heading. I've chucked it in here to the first little bit of body copy to create one of our other keywords. I'm not just going for Pilanesberg accommodation specials. I also want to cover Pilanesberg safari lodges, but I don't have any body copy at the bottom here yet.
No.
It's been 2 days. I haven't had a moment to write a word. Spoke to my writers, briefed them. They're going to get to it sometime this week. And the way we go about that, now I'm going to jump across a little bit to our strategy and our approach. So I started a Google Doc. It's called D2D SEO Brief, Keyword Research. All right, we've created our non-province sections. We need to decide still, is it deals, specials, promotions, or discounts? Once we've done our keyword research, we're going to do copywriting. We're going to do the homepage. We're going to do copy for every single of our type of Safari pages. Each of those pages need, I don't know, Rick, 200, 500, 1,000 words each, something like that. Depends how competitive it is.
As long as it's relevant. Like we said last week, don't write nonsense. Write that'll help the user at the end of the day.
But let's just say, I mean, a lot of people ask us how much copy is enough. Right now, the page, as you look at it, I would say there's not enough, right? I mean, if anyone else on the web has got an article that's focusing on Pilanesberg accommodation specials, and they've, even if it's horrible, terrible copy, like no one paid attention to it, they're going to do better than us just because it is there at all.
Google considers anything below 300-400 words to be thin content.
Thin content.
Yes.
Okay, so just need to have enough. It's like opening a book in the library, wonderful cover, beautiful picture. You open it up, it's blank. It's not going to satisfy a user. You've got to chuck something inside the book, put something on the pages. If it's rubbish, people are going to look at the book, put it back on the shelf and not carry on reading. But if it's decent, they'll go, this is relevant, this makes sense. It's and not just focusing on one keyword, maybe we're going to focus on two keywords, like we said, safari lodges and accommodation specials. Yes. Classic use case. Now, this is a relatively small site, but if you think about it, I've got to do this exact same process for 9 provinces, 3 top destinations, 6 or 7 safari types, and the homepage. Call it a dozen, 2 dozen pages, following a rinse repeat process. So once you get into the groove, you can actually, it's not rocket science. You don't have to reinvent it every time. You just got to start with the correct key, like a seed keyword. You can do all this effort, but be focusing on the wrong keyword, and it's not for waste, but you're going to get much less traffic. So that's why I'm just referring back to keyword research being so critical. So there's the copywriting we're going to do. We've got some internal links. I spoke about that, the navigation, breadcrumbs. We've got some really powerful pages on our site. I think I grabbed an export from SEMrush here, Rick, which basically lists all of the pages on our site, from our homepage to herd tracker, our safari page, the Cape Town City Bowl page. But in these columns, it lists how many backlinks to each of those pages. So our homepage naturally has, 400 odd links to it. Yes. A more granular page, way down at the bottom here, only has 5 or 6 links to it. And that's kind of normal. But if I wanted to give this new platform of ours a special boost, I should probably think about adding a link to our deals platform from some of these pages near the top. So that's exactly what we're going to. We created something called the Safari Cost Estimator about a year or 2 ago. It's a funky little tool that lets users kind of work out a ballpark figure for a safari to Africa. Clearly, we've got some traction. We've got 16 or 18 links pointing to it. I'd love not only users that land up on that site to know about the deals platform, but Googlebot that sort of knows about the value of this site to transfer some of that value we've captured and pass it on to this new platform. This is sort of getting to slightly more advanced link building and SEO thinking. But if you get to this point, you really are leveraging your past value for future work. And I think that's kind of the broader thinking we've got to think about. Then external links. This is sort of the high level summary. Jared was working on that PR strategy. I was in touch with my industry contacts to see what we can do. And then links from suppliers. We thought, right, we've got 32 deals on our website. Why don't we ask every one of those lodges, guest houses, hotels to link to the deals platform? And as wonderful as it sounds, we can pick up the phone, we can call them. Chances are they going to link to us if they're also running the specials on their own site? So I think the point I'm making here is that we need to not only think pure tech, because I was very excited about these new links we were going to get from our partners, but Alice, who has the relationship with these lodges, said, Andre, you've got to think about the politics, the business. They're not going to sort of freely link to you. You mustn't have these like dreamy ideas. It's got to be the right context, and there's got to be the right reason for these links that you earn and ask for and partner with. If we can give them something back in return for that link, maybe we link to them, they link to us. Now there's a bit of sort of quid pro quo value. But anyway, I'm just speaking a little bit loosely, a little bit broadly, and these are the things we'll consider around link building.
Andre, just quickly on the external links or links, inbound links, let's call them that.
Yeah.
Inbound links. Just two things to remember for our viewers. One is that different platforms have different value, so you want to get links from high worth platforms. It doesn't help you just getting 100 links from Johnny's Guest House. You want to get links from your CNNs and your News 24s, and those kind of things are super valuable. They're far more valuable than getting 200 links from little guest houses.
Yeah.
But that's important. But the other thing to also note is that you want to get links from industry. So it doesn't help you getting, if like us, for example, we're in the travel tourism industry, we need links from the travel tourism industry. We don't necessarily need links from, the automotive industry, because it just shows Google that we've got relevance to what we're trying to rank for at the end of the day. So something to remember.
Absolutely. And something else, I think we saw a week or two, we were chatting to a prospective client, and their previous agency were claiming to have got them all these links. And I researched that agency. They were selling link packages. You could buy 100 links and they would deliver them magically to you. And this is just screams black hat. It screams danger. There was this whole, until about 4 or 5 years ago, it was very hard for Google they didn't have the capability or the capacity to check everyone's backlinks in terms of integrity. And basically, there was this whole black market of link sales from these fictitious sites in India and Russia and all these places. And people were spinning up whole complete networks of sites that were just garbage content written by robots. And Google's worked out all those patterns through artificial intelligence and machine learning. And if you start getting a whole chunk of links overnight from a network of sites in Russia or India, and I'm sorry to our Russian and Indian friends if you're listening, but it screams artificial, not the real world. And Google will not only ignore those links, if they see enough of that kind of behavior, they will penalize your site. And I've seen this happen to brands. And it's dangerous. It'll take you right out of the search result. You will go from whatever traffic you had before to 0 overnight until you clean up your act, until you tell Google how you've cleaned up your act, and then they'll slowly let you back in. It's literally being sent to the naughty corner, and it's quite frightening when that happens. So really, as much as links is the key to success, it can also be your downfall. And just pay a careful attention to that when you're working with an agency, or if you've hired someone to do link building. It's the biggest area for risk as well as reward. Yeah. All right. I'm going to carry on with links very quickly because we've got a lot to cover. Just an example I mentioned about if you've got traditional PR approaches, carry on with that, but don't forget to ask explicitly or implicitly to link to your resource, link to your website, link to your video that you've produced. And don't just link to the YouTube channel. Post it on your site. Create a little article around that YouTube video if it's something like that, and then get people to link to your site. It's a way of attracting eyeballs and real good valuable links to your platform. And then don't forget to ask your own partner sites. If you're in a network or a tourism, or whatever industry you're in, you can ask your friends in the industry to link to you. It'll just get the whole awareness of your site going. And it's literally those first 4 or 5 links will take you from page 3 to page 1, depending on how competitive your niche is. But I'm telling you, Rick, if we were to get 3 links to that Pilanesberg page from Pilanesberg Lodges or anyone in the Pilanesberg niche, we will be page 1 guaranteed on that fairly high search term, perhaps even top 5. And it's that kind of specific work that can make a real difference.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, look, Rick, speed is sort of the next big thing. And I think in the first week I showed how a bland, vanilla flavored WordPress install gets you a score of 99 out of 100. We added a bunch of WordPress plugins, and it got us down to the 49 or 59 stage. But what is it that we as sort of non-devs and devs can do to get that score back from sort of 40, 50 closer to 100? Maybe just chat us through that.
Okay. So just going through the easy things that non-devs can do. Your biggest problem that, because web development has started to get very simple, people just add plugins for more functionality. They just keep adding more plugins and more features. And at the end of the day, you're sitting with 45 plugins, but your site is loading so slowly that no one can actually access it. It is extremely important that every plugin, no matter how small, that you implement on your website, you need to interrogate it to ensure that it is absolutely essential. We have seen, so what's happening is that every time you put a plugin or a module, whatever, so on Drupal it would be modules, on WordPress it would be plugins. Every time you add one of these plugins or modules, it is doing multiple lookups against CDNs, against pulling in new JavaScript files. It really is bad. It's probably the first thing that you can do is just to remove all of those plugins, because you'll see it will reduce the amount of JavaScript and CSS on your website, which is crucial. Andre, if you just jump back to that doc of yours. So
yeah,
I've got someone ringing the front doorbell here. Then the next thing is your image sizes. Everyone loves loading the biggest images on the planet because they think if it's a pretty image, then it's going to make sales. I've worked with a couple of our partners now over the last couple of weeks, and I've seen 4.5 megabyte images on a single page load. So you can think that if the page loads, a page load should be less than a meg. And now you've got a single image that's 4.5 megs. Okay, so that's, always make sure that you're running PNGs, JPEGs and not PNGs, because PNGs are massive. Always run JPEGs. And then I've put in here manual versus plugin. So there are a whole bunch of plugins like Smush and Image Optimizer.
With something I call Asset Cleaner Pro. I don't know if that's one of the plugins that does images, or is that more for code?
No, I'll get to Asset Cleaner Pro in a second. That's a bit more advanced. But
okay, fine. But there's similar plugins for images, which is a straightforward thing, right?
Yeah, it is a straightforward thing, but I actually recommend that you do this manually. So you would sit with your web developer, pull down all your images, resize them, make them JPEGs, go through that whole process just to make sure that you are loading the images at the smallest possible size. It's really, guys, it's so valuable. You have no idea how valuable that is. And then, sorry, I've got people collecting parcels.
Real life, eh?
Real life, eh? Welcome to Zoomland.
This is 2020, guys.
Oh, welcome to the party. Let's carry on.
Cool. So the next part is lazy loading images. There is a lazy load plugin for WordPress by Rocket. I think it's Rocket. I can't remember exactly. But that's a really good plugin. Guys, lazy loading images just means that all your images aren't loaded off the bat. And it means that...
What I'm showing here is like just before this page loaded, these images were blank. But the second I scrolled to this point, then the image came through. So yes, unless you're going to scroll lower down, there's no need for those images. They're off canvas for the average user. So let's not send it until the user needs it. Just to help sort of explain that.
Yeah, perfect. And then if you just jump back to that. So lazy loading is super important. Reduce the plugins, reduce your image size. Implement a CDN. Chat to your web developer, implement a CDN. What a CDN basically means is just that your content is delivered from servers all over the world. So you can imagine that you're sitting in South Africa, your server, the website you're trying to access has its server in the United States. It actually has to get from the US to South Africa, which slows things down. With the CDN, it means that the content's downloaded from South Africa instead of the US, which also makes things a lot quicker.
So just to elaborate, basically your web server might live in the US, but all the images, all the JavaScript files, they literally make a copy of all those dependencies and send them to multiple servers around the world. There'll be one in Australia, one in Thailand, one in South Africa, one in Europe, one in South America. And basically your whole site can be brought artificially closer to your users through this content delivery network. There's a ton of free ones out there. You go for the relatively cheap and paid versions, you're going to only get even better performance out of it. So, and it's not technically hard. You have to write code for it. It's like log in, pay your $9 a month, tick a box, right? It's that kind of setup.
Absolutely, yeah. It does take a bit of setup, but you know, any web developer with their salt should be able to get this up and running for you pretty quickly. So, Andre, I've got a couple of questions here, which is is exactly on this.
Cool.
So just Jennifer said, I was working on a site recently and their homepage images were 12 megabytes. So yes, that happens. That literally will mean that you won't rank in Google ever. If your page has got 12 megs worth of images, you won't rank ever because Google won't load it.
Research, links, blah, 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 all that stuff till you're blue in the face. But that one thing is going to hold you back. Yeah.
Exactly. And she also says that she tries to keep images to less than 100 KB. I think that's very good advice. It is difficult to keep all your images less than 100 KB because you can imagine your screen width about 2.4 on the big screens. And so it is difficult, but I mean, that's great to do.
But on a slightly more advanced point that you can do adaptive images, which means that for every one image, you've got the desktop version that's nice and big and high res, but close to 150, 200K. And you can have the equivalent made for mobile that's only 300 pixels wide and maybe 30K because you don't need that mega thing on your phone. You can have the mini version, the mini me for your phone, and the website will be smart at sending the appropriate one to the appropriate device. So this is all like, you know, going from bare minimum to sort of taking to an advanced level. There's almost a spectrum for all of these optimization techniques.
Yeah. And next question is there an optimum amount of plugins? So there isn't. The thing is, if you've got a server the size of, you know, the US, then you can run as many plugins as you want. But if you've got a shared hosting environment and you're running 20 plugins, it's going to kill your site. So at the end of the day, the more plugins you run and the more bloat you create, the more you're going to have to pay for a bigger server to run those. It's just you know, a cost at the end of the day.
Rick, I've got on the screen here now, like our deal site's running at 49. It's got about, I don't know, 15 or so plugins. And then I've got Drive South Africa, our other WordPress sites, far more complex, probably 30 plugins, something like that. But we're scoring 80. But that's because you've literally spent the last month going through the site and optimizing and tweaking and resizing all those images. So it's not just the plugins. It's not a straightforward yes, no answer. It's how you use it. It's how far you sharpen that pencil to make all those granular improvements.
Exactly. So someone's also asked in order of preference, SVG, JPG, and PNG. Always SVG, but SVG is very difficult to do because it's a vector that you have to build up and actually push through code. The safe option for 99% of people is JPEG. Just don't put in PNGs. It'll kill your site. And then Martis asked if there's a list of 14 things for SEO. Where can I see this? It'll be in the same dockets from last week we discussed.
And what I can I've had a lot of people ask about the recordings and these documents. I have shared them with Red and Yellow, and Nikki and Wesley have assured me that I think they're going to combine them all three lectures together and then release it. So in that recordings, we're also going to have all these links, all these resources that we've spoken about. So don't worry about that. You will be able to reach all these things.
Yeah. Okay. So just quickly, I'm sorry, I'm taking up a lot of time, but the harder things for devs, guys, try to avoid Google Tag Manager as far as you can. I know it's probably a lot of people will freak out about this because Google Tag Manager is the new and best thing. But we've just implemented legacy Google Analytics, the original Google Analytics. We've implemented that because the new Tag Manager is throwing in so much bloat. Google is actually the biggest culprit. They want you to be super quick, but Google and Facebook are the biggest culprits. They literally throw in tons of additional JavaScript and CSS into your website just so they can track your website. Scrap that. Don't go Tag Manager. If you just want to see what your website's doing, just search for legacy Google Analytics and use that little bit of code. It's as simple as that. That's a big thing. That's made a big difference for us. With your devs, JavaScript and CSS, you need to mandate them to keep JavaScript and CSS to as few files as possible, as little as possible. It's the quickest and easiest way to bloat is JavaScript. CSS is bad, but JavaScript is terrible.
And just to join the dots, when it comes to the WordPress plugins, it's not necessarily the plugins themselves. It's the fact that most plugins require JavaScript and bespoke CSS. And as an example, Rick, I remember for Drive South Africa, we had sort of 3 or 4 plugins that were all using jQuery, which is a very popular library for doing sort of dynamic, fun things on a website. And it's nothing wrong with jQuery. It's a great, fairly light footprint piece of code. But we had 4 plugins running it, and all 4 of them were calling jQuery 4 times over. So it's that kind of sort of duplicity that comes in. And just knowing that, then we can turn 3 of the 4 off, and they can all run off one jQuery file. Voila, you've shaved another 300-400 kilobytes off the page load, and it's just coming down the pipe faster to the user. So it's just all these things are connected, and I think that's really the key when it comes to speed. I don't think there's anything else you want to touch on there, Rick, before we move on to sort of UX and how we tackle that?
No, that's all good.
Okay, so UX is kind of the softest of the SEO fundamentals, I would say, because it isn't technical, it's not programming, it's not an on-off switch, it's the human factor. We've discussed EAT, expertise, authority, and trust, and making sure that your site's mobile first. And like Rick's pointed out here in his comment, make sure you find out if you're in Google's mobile first index. Google, a year or 2 ago, actually has 2 separate sort of libraries, if you will, 2 databases, saying this is our old desktop one and this is our new mobile one, now that everyone's going mobile. And if your site has shifted over to the mobile index, but you're not very mobile friendly, you're going to have a hard time ranking there. If you haven't been shifted over, okay, you're in desktop land, but only 40 or 30% of people are actually searching desktop land. So it's kind of it's almost inevitable. You have to get your mobile friendly stuff right. And Google's got ways through image recognition to know if, or site crawling to know how mobile friendly your site is. Some of the tips we give in terms of usability and UX is to actually watch people using your site. Sit over their shoulder in the office, ask them to click around and do something, find the newsletter subscribe form, watch them on their phone, ask your wife or girlfriend or whoever to do the same thing. All it takes is 5 users' reactions or feedback, and you're going to have 80% of your problems discovered. It's not my opinion. Nielsen, back in the 80s, the godfather of usability, did tons and tons of studies, and he said by the 5th user, you've uncovered most of your problems. So that's all you need to do. Listen to what they have to say.
Sorry, I'm just remembering a conversation we had where you showed me a video about the user is drunk.
We want to watch
experience. That. It's worthwhile doing a search, just watching it. The user is drunk UX. It basically just says that when someone hits your site, they act as if they're drunk. And they don't see half the stuff you put on there. They just see the big glaring buttons. It's actually quite entertaining.
And like with a drunk person, you normally have to tell them twice because like they didn't hear you the first time, or they're mumbling, or they're distracted. Like, go here to, I don't know, download this ebook, and then make sure the button also says download the ebook. If you just say it once and then the other thing's a bit vague, the average user is going to miss it. And I mean, we're talking about SEO and UX at the same time now, but these kinds of behaviors or visual soft things that we do to help the user engage with our site, Google has found programmatic ways to measure how good your site is at these things. So don't think there's a whole team of people saying your site's good or not. They've got an algorithm that determines the UX and the convertibility of your site. And you don't focus on this. Once again, you can do all the links, the content, the technical, the CDN, till you're blue in the face. If your UX is rubbish, Google's going to downgrade you compared to those other sites that are fast and all the rest, but are actually useful to users. The kind of things to look for in analytics is your bounce rate. Check your funnel. If you've set up a sort of a path to completion on your site, see where people are dropping off in that funnel and learn from that. Look at your exit pages on your site. These are all things available in Google Analytics, and you can see suddenly everyone's leaving on your About Us page or your Contact Us page. Maybe there's something wrong there. Maybe there's something missing there that'll help people reach that objective. And always remember context of desktop versus mobile. Rick, I remember when we relaunched Drive South Africa about a year or two ago, we were looking at, I think, conversion rates or bounce rates, and we were like, oh, great. The old site was at 2% and the new site's at 2.5%. That sounds like an improvement, right? And we were delighted, but we were kind of misled because we saw that desktop had improved from 2% to 3%, but mobile had gone from 2% to like 1.8%, or had gone backwards. But because we were using an average, it was masking the detail. And only once we dived into that second level did we realize that, hang on, we've done some wonderful stuff on the desktop version, but we actually took the users backwards on mobile. So we fixed that mobile thing, and then the overall aggregate improved. So just a reminder, and mobile versus desktop is not the only context. You could think about location. You could think about language. You could think about, I don't know, there's all sorts of parameters, and just think about your users. I think that's the most important thing. That's what this whole usability is about.
So I mean, UX has become really, really important from an SEO perspective, because Google can now say, okay, it's about finding an answer to a question. Whenever you're typing something in search, you're trying to answer a question. Like for us, example, you're searching for a car hire in, Namibia, for example. That's it. I have a question and I need an answer to that question. And Google has gotten really good at understanding if the question is being answered through your page. So if you can kind of keep that in mind at all times, that your page must answer the question to that search. So Jennifer has asked here, what bounce rates is normal? So there is no normal bounce rates. I'm going to kick myself now because I can't remember the Japanese term, but Andre, you might know. But it's about always trying to improve.
Continuous improvement, Kaizen. Yeah.
Yes, there we go. So you're always trying to take your bounce rate today and try and drop that bounce rate by 10% this week. Just by making a small change. A week later, try and drop it by another 10%. If you can keep doing that, of course you've got industry benchmarks, but you just want to keep on improving. If you can keep doing that, then you'll have a better user experience and you'll start ranking.
This site, cxl.com, is one of my favorites in terms of user experience and conversion rates. They've got great articles. I would just jump onto this one first. If you're looking, in different industries, you've got different conversion rates. So different, if you're e-commerce versus just lead gen. But yeah, I don't know. What are our bounce rates? They're like in the, 40 to 60% range, something like that.
They're about 50 to 60%.
Expect half your users. I mean, maybe it's a terrible expectation, but right now, I can tell you that half the people that land on our sites leave right away. I'd love to improve that. It's not about whether that's good or bad. It's whether tomorrow I can do better than that. And what are we going to do? We're going to do these things like looking at our users, etc. All right. I think maybe that's enough around UX. We want to leave a bit of time for questions. The Google tools we use day in, day out are Google Analytics and Google Search Console. I've got analytics open here, and it's not a whole analytics class here. There's tons and tons of videos. But as an example, here I'm looking at the real-time stats on our site. There's 3 people there right now. It looks like they're all in Pietermaritzburg. If we hang out here long enough, you're going to see little red dots pop up. They're looking at Masai Mara, Zanzibar, and monopools in Zimbabwe. And you can see sort of over time, when I go to the all pages view, for the last 7 days, you can always change your date dimensions. If this is a crash course in analytics, it's pretty cool. I'm stoked to see, Rick, that Deals, our new platform, has had the most impressions out of all pages on our site these last 7 days, more than our homepage, more than Her Tracker, which is one of our most popular pages for a long, long time, and more than our Serengeti and some of our other Safari pages. So that's pretty cool. I can obviously drill down, look which pages or get a bit more detail about Deals as I go through. Oh, that's through the content drill down, I think. There we go. yeah, so you can kind of see where the eyeballs have been going. The travel pages, the about pages had a fair amount of action. So this is just very high level, the kinds of things you can see in analytics. One thing I want to point out is the importance of setting up goals. I mean, it's wonderful to see where people are going all over your site, but what is it you want them to achieve? You need to go to the little admin button, I think, which is at the bottom of here, your little gear. Then choose the right properties. Once you're at your property, you're looking at, you can set up a goal. We've got about 8 or 10 different goals set up for our sites. One of them being chat, one of them being contact, one of us being the new deals to discover goal. And basically, whenever someone hits that page, we now will highlight that little that page impression, and we'll be able to work out of all the visitors to our site, how many end up where we want them to go. And that's your conversion rate. So set up goals on your site if you don't have them yet. And your goal can be anything from buying now, subscribing to a newsletter, sending an inquiry through, whatever, or hotel booking, whatever your site's purpose is, you can set up a goal for it. The next most tool we use is Search Console. Rick, here I think you might have to guide me quickly. On the overview page, you can kind of see our traffic or web search clicks in the last week. Since level 2, we're getting a bit more traffic, and it looks like yesterday was a record day for us, Rick, in the last 3 months. Very excited. It tells you sort of errors you've got on your site, mobile usability. We've got 0 mobile usability errors. That's really nice.
So that the core web vitals there. So yeah, that's basically what Google has now launched, saying that by 2021, core web vitals will be used as a baseline to rank your website on, which is essentially your page speed. And that's why I've been working so hard to try and get our page speeds up. So they consider mobile to be under 4 seconds. So your page must be loading under 4 seconds, which we now are doing. And then it takes 28 days for Google to do a full data set of your site before they can give you the good URLs.
Okay, so we've already got 158, but we want to try and get these other poor or need improvements.
Correct.
28 days, I'll kind of rescore them, and then maybe we'll have even more in the green zone.
Exactly. So I mean, Google Search Console is like the baseline for you to be able to see your site health in terms of SEO. You've got SEMrush and all those really cool tools. But if you just want to get to the base understanding of, are you in good stead, then Google Search Console is there for you. It'll tell you, so we've got a problem with the sitemaps, which Andre and I have been discussing. Yeah. Because one of the plugins isn't working. So we now know that the sitemap is an issue. We know that Core Web Vitals is slow, so we've improved the Core Web Vitals. Everything that you need is right here. You don't need to go anywhere else.
Well, tell you what's wrong with your site. All you need to know is where to go and how to interpret. I mean, this is a bit cryptic to me. Rick's on the more technical end of SEO than I am. So he'll be able to jump in there and resolve this in a couple of hours or a couple of days. I don't know. It depends what's causing this problem. I mean, there's other things. They tell you your site coverage. There's 24 errors. Small things like there's a no index. I mean, I'm not going to go into all these details, but every one of these little items on the left are clues as to what you can do to improve your site. Yeah, I mean, we need a whole webinar just to dive through Google Search Console. That's something we can work on, Wesley. To lighter, much easier tools that are very valuable, especially for smaller local businesses, is Google My Business. I think I opened that up over here. And literally, it's the ability to appear or create a listing for your business that is verified by Google, and then you can get reviews. You can put your physical address in so that you appear on maps.
This is extremely important for local businesses, guys. If you're a restaurant or a whatever, if you don't have this, you're losing out on a lot of traffic already. So just start with that if you're a local business.
Yeah, and this, whether it's related to SEO or not, it's a great idea to do. It's how people can phone you from their mobile search. I mean, we all search a restaurant name, you land up on Eat Out or whatever, and you struggle to find that phone number. If you register with Google, you get a big blue button with a phone on it. People are calling you right away, and you'll see the phone start ringing the second you do it.
They are getting very clever now. I think that you can add your menu if you're a restaurant. You can add specific dates and times. You can say exactly what your company's about. You can add posts and specials and deals which get pushed out. So really spend some time if you're a local business on this. It's very valuable.
And then linked to it is Google reviews, which I'm not going to jump into now, but through your Google My Business profile, people can review you. Now, we know people get reviews on TripAdvisor, on Facebook, on, I don't know, all these other platforms. That's great. That's for the real world to see your positive reviews, whether it's restaurant reviews or whatever. But Google reviews is owned by Google. So they can take the scores and how often people are reviewing that lives inside their whole data structure and feed that information into their SEO algorithm. And remember we said right at the beginning, the library analogy, the referral analogy, the recommendation analogy. This is how Google can say, wow, this restaurant in, I don't know, center of Cape Town gets 5 reviews a week. The other one gets 2 reviews a week. Maybe the one that's getting 5 reviews a week is a better one to recommend, or the one that's getting a higher rating should be pushed up higher in the results than the one that gets a lower rating. So it's just the last kind of, again, it's an analogy of what Google can and does do in everything to try and mimic the real world. And that, without any further ado, kind of wraps up the 8 fundamentals. I'm going to fire off one big question that sort of I think is on a lot of people's lips, or 2 actually. It's questions to ask an agency when you're about to hire them, or when you're going to hire someone internally to take care of SEO. I would simply just have these 8 points available. You might not even understand what all of them are. You haven't watched these webinars, but just ask the people you're about to work with, what's your opinion and what's your approach on each of these? And it's not that you can know if their answer is right or wrong. If they fumble their way through it and they sound like they're kind of backtracking, whatever, then this is not the crowd to work with. But if it sounds like they have a strong opinion, whether it's the same as Rick and I, it doesn't really matter. It's more that they actually have done some research, and you can ask them why and how. Show me a case study where you've done some of this. I think a lot of us are too quick just to hire someone and it's a lust. So you're going to just deal with it. Spend time hiring the right people, whether it's in-house or as an agency, and it'll make all the difference. This is the difference between your site being found or not. Ask who on the team will be doing the work, how much experience they've got. Are they more of the technical kind? Are they slightly more on the content or creative? Find out how many hours they're dedicating per month or how many days. So many agencies are selling you a retainer, 2,000 Rand a month or 20,000 Rand a month to do your SEO for you. Find out what you're getting for that, because I've seen so many agencies selling snake oil and literally do nothing after that retainer is signed. And they just send you a push button PDF analytics report once a month, and you think they're doing work for you. Vital.
Andre, if I could just quickly jump in here. I don't know if you saw my comments up top there. Something to remember, please. If you go to an SEO agency and they tell you they will get you to rank number 1 quickly, it's going to be easy. They'll do it. Please run away as quickly as possible. SEO is not like it was 15 years ago. 15 years ago, maybe, but these days it's far more complex. If you're a new website competing against anyone in any space, it's going to be difficult to rank. So it's a long-term thing, and that's why I said change the way that you do your marketing to be SEO inclusive.
That's it.
Think about how you're doing everything on a daily basis to include SEO. It's not something that's separate. It's, for example, Andre mentioned earlier, when you do a PR exercise, make sure that you're linking to a page on your site, not linking to a YouTube video on YouTube. That's including SEO in everything that you're doing. But just be very careful of guys that say that they will get you to number 1, easily. I mean, it's never easy. I can tell you that.
And then I'd love to field any more questions if we've got time, Wesley. But the one that's often on everyone's lip is how much should SEO cost? And that's, how long is a piece of string? I'll give you a bit of context of what our team looks like. We've got 2 websites, 2 main brands and a couple of small ones, like we've just seen, the deal site. But for our 2 sites, we essentially have a team of 5 or 6 working full-time on them. Not everyone is hardcore SEO, but you can see sort of Rick and I kind of lead the SEO stream. Our content marketers, our content producers, our video team, everyone is working towards SEO. So that's, call it 3 people per brand, whether you want to work it out on a salary basis or whatever. But we're through and through online business. So we need to kind of have that degree of input. But if you're a smaller company where you also get your traffic or your business from elsewhere, restaurant, hotel, I don't know, selling air conditioners, whatever it may be, selling online courses, education, all these exciting things. You have to, if you think you need some SEO work, you need to dedicate some time to an audit. And that can be a light audit. In one day, you could probably cover these 8 fundamentals. Imagine you just put 1 hour into each of these fundamentals. You get a very light overview. You wouldn't get like deep detail, but I would love to spend a good 3 to 4 hours per fundamental. Am I right, Rick? I mean, you could spend a day on each of these sort of pillars, getting really deep, but anything from 1 to 5 days just to get the audit and to know the lay of the land. Depending on how that looks, you could spend anything from 2 days to 2 months, like really improving all the fundamental stuff up front. And thereafter, it's that growth cycle. It's the continuous content creation. It's the continuous link building. It's revisiting the audit once every 6 or 12 months, Eric. It's continuous. So this is the kind of expectation. I'm not going to put a number to this answer, but just bear in mind, you know, these are whether it's a developer or a content person earning, you know, market-related salaries. If you're hiring them in-house, this is how much time they need. If you're hiring an agency to do this kind of work, expect to pay a slight premium, but hopefully you're getting experts that can actually do the work and do it at the right caliber. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's anyone else with questions along these lines?
We've got time for maybe this last question from Judd, because we are actually over time already. But it's a great question. So question on ROI: paid advertising targeted equals targeted users coming to see your site at the exact targeted keywords versus ROI on organic traffic, which is less specific target users and less specific on keywords. Is SEO a worthwhile investment when you get a targeted traffic and use marketing and UX to deliver higher ROI? I mean, over to you, Andre.
That is good, Rick.
That's a great one. Over to you, Rick.
Rick, you go first.
Must I answer this one? Okay.
No, we both can have a shot.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Judd, it's a really good question. The thing is, people tend to think, oh, I'm going to just do paid advertising and then, you know, it's going to be fantastic and I never have to worry about organic. The problem is that paid advertising costs money at the end of the day. So you're always paying per lead. With organic, you're investing amount of money and then it pays off at the end of the day. So your cost per lead on organic traffic is going to be 10 Rand, where your cost per lead on paid advertising will be 120 Rand. So you're doing the initial work to pay off later on. So it's an investment in the longevity of your business, in my opinion. I use paid advertising to plug my organic. Because I want natural organic growth like this. And when I need that extra boost or I need that extra coming in, I push on the paid. So it adds on top of organic. But if you're just going to keep pushing paid advertising, take for example now, sorry, this might be a bit long-winded answer, but take for example now during COVID. The first thing that happened is everyone's cash flow dried up and everyone stopped spending on paid because you don't have cash to buy leads. But we at Discover Africa have been focusing on organic for 3-4 years now. When everyone else in our industry weren't getting any more leads because they weren't paying for their leads, we were the ones who kept getting leads. So it's because we invested in organic and topped up on paid instead of just throwing money.
That makes absolute sense.
I'll jump in with 2 cents. I won't drag it out too long, but I agree with everything Rick said. It's long-term versus short-term view. And certainly when you're launching a brand new site, if you don't have the benefit of like a longevity of a domain and you need to get traction right away, sure, do some paid, but be clever. Don't just assume it's only Google. Your product might work well in YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. There's many channels for paid. So that's my first comment. It's the, support the long-term view, the plugging the gap or the immediate launch need. But there's one little sting in the tail with paid, is that the more people that join that party, it's a bidding game. Yeah. And we've seen so many clients and so many people say, right now it costs us 5 Rand for that lead. And then there's one of your neighbors does the same. And now you start bidding against each other, 5 Rand, 6 Rand, 8 Rand. And then wait for it. Booking.com or one of the big multinationals around the world joins the party and they outbid everyone. So now you're paying for inferior traffic and not getting the results. And it is also, and Ajad, I must agree with you, it's profound. It's critical that your UX and your content and all that stuff is really good, because you don't want to be paying for traffic and sending it to a broken funnel. or a bucket with a hole in it. When you're going to spend your money like that, you really make sure that your funnel and your process is rock solid. And just beware of that sort of bidding marketplace. Just end up making it too expensive. But of course, balanced approach is probably best. Do a little bit of both.
Paid can, sorry, Andre, just to speak to, sorry, and I know I'm ranting a little here, but it gets to a point where you are bidding against your competitors to such a degree that you actually don't make any profits off paid.
Yeah.
It can get that bad.
We've seen it. We've done it ourselves.
It's happened to us where we've been spending every cent that we spend there's no GP on it. So it gets very expensive if you've got a very competitive industry to go paid. And if you can get SEO and organic right, then you'll outperform your competitors in the long run.
Guys, I'm going to have to cut it there. It's been absolutely brilliant having you, Andre and Rick, here with us over these last 3 weeks. You've jam-packed these sessions with so much knowledge, so much value. And really, we are so grateful to you guys for taking the time out to come and speak to us and our audience. Thank you. Now, usually, if we weren't in pandemic time, you would each be getting a pair of red and yellow socks. But I can't give them to you virtually, so we are going to give them to you via the snail mail or some other way. But really, that's just a small way of us saying thank you to you guys for just the effort and the time that you've put in here. It really has been so valuable. And I'm sure all of our participants would agree that it's been absolutely brilliant. For those who are asking, yes, we will make all of the recordings available. That should be up on our site in the next week or so. So you can recap that. And if you want to get into more in-depth in terms of SEO, we do offer an SEO online short course as well by Red and Yellow. You can just go to our website and check that out. But lastly, just again, a big thank you to Andre, a big thank you to Rick. You guys have been absolute stars. Thanks so much. And it's nearly 1 o'clock. I'm sure everybody's got a 1 o'clock meeting they need to rush off to.
Thank you, Wesley and Red and Yellow. We've really enjoyed this. It's been awesome.
No, and we'll do it again. We definitely want to do this again with you guys. It's been awesome.
If you can ask your users what they want to hear next, we'll start doing detailed sessions. We'd love to.
That's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. I'll ask Nick to make a note of that, and we'll get going on that.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week further. Look after yourselves. Take care. Stay warm, although the sun is out in Cape Town at least. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.